Well, thank you so much, Yahli, for being our first Futureside chat guest.
You're so kind. Thank you.
So this is pretty exciting, and I think this is actually you're the perfect person to kick it off. A bit about Yahli, and I would also love for you to, tell us more about yourself. Yahli has worked with several sizes of companies and organizations. She's advised companies from Coca-Cola to Microsoft to governments on actually how to enable and create resilient organizations, and really doing that with technology specifically.
Yeah.
And you studied at Tel Aviv University. You've also executive program at Singularity University. So you're really tied in with the community there. Yeah, please tell us more about
it. Well, first of all, I'm so happy after 2 years that the university wasn't working. I'm going to be there again for another executive program in like 3 weeks. So yeah, a month. So I'm highly excited about that.
Which one is this one?
It's Singularity University. It's again, I'm going. Yeah.
Which program is it?
It's a special new program, an executive program, but it's going to be very different because till now we were coming and for 4 or 5 days we simply listening and just there were a little bit of discussions, but very small ones. I mean, the majority was simply, lectures. And now I understood that Dr. Tiffany Vora, which is a colleague and a participant in a crime in some senses, she told me that they flipped on and now it's going to be much more workshop and ideation. So I'm looking forward because it's going to be, and it's going to be very long, every morning from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the evening, like a boot camp.
It is. I was about to say it's like a boot camp.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm an Israeli. I'm a very proud Israeli, and I've been working in Israel, in Africa, in the United States, in Europe, all over. So I see myself as citizen of the world, but more than anything, I see myself as humanistic. I'm extremely optimistic. I'm what we call techno-optimist, and I'm very proud of it, especially in this time and era. And I think what you are doing is so important. It's immensely, you have a wonderful vision, and I'm so happy that I'm capable to be when you're doing the baby steps and we can, play with it.
Yes.
In the beginning, and I am really looking forward to see where are you going to head from here with this beautiful vision and your wonderful ideas. So it's a great pleasure and huge, honor for me to be here. So I just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you, Yahli. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When you talk about being a techno-optimist, especially in this time, I think it would be very interesting for people to understand kind of the range that people are on when it comes to technology. So when you say you're a techno-optimist, what do you mean?
I mean that I think technology is one of the largest forces that we have right now. Mm. And I think it can assist us to progress for good. We are in a very unusual era when we have 15 what we call disruptive technology, which are coming to an age. One of my mentors and teachers, Salim Ismail, he coined the term 15 Gutenberg moments, because when Gutenberg, created the printing press, this was, a eureka moment in many senses, as it was a paradigm shift. And right now we have 15 technologies which are disruptive, and we're coming to age, meaning they are with us. AI, for example, is with us 65 years. 3D printing is nearly 40 years. So it took us a long, long time, and now they are becoming cheap enough. So they can be ubiquitous, so you can really use them everywhere. They are quite reliable. And I think you can deploy them in many, many different domains. So I think it's, and what is going to be much more interesting is beyond each category, each technology by itself, which is the impact is going to be in any case huge. Like, for example, only, AI is going to contribute $30 trillion to the total GDP within 16 years. And right now the GDP.
Small chunk of change. Small chunk.
Yeah. No. And today the GDP is 88. So just to give you an idea.
Sure.
But what is going to be interesting is the conversion between the technologies. So I think this is an unprecedented time for human race. We have huge challenges in front of us, and we have huge opportunities. And right now we have the best tool we ever had. So it's in our power and it's our responsibility to use them for good, which I believe this is what you are trying to do.
Yeah.
This is what you are aiming. So this is why this is why I'm so optimistic right now. And I think these technologies are so powerful. So I think what is happening right now, what we see right now is that they're being taken out of the secretive room of the technology, I would say community. And there is a march for democratization of all these technologies and empowering everybody to be a part of the conversation, how we use the technology and what are we using it for and what can be or might be the unintended consequences for any kind of usage that we're going to have in the future. So I think this is what we should.
Right. I mean, we're really trying to, in your work as well, is really trying to make technology accessible and democratized as possible for the public.
Yeah.
And one of those ways, we've discussed a bit before is company building. Companies as kind of the rocket ships that actually help us build towards, one of the alternative futures, for better or for worse. So I'm also curious in your work, how are the companies you're working with making their technology accessible or making it democratized or, being optimistic about the things that they do with it?
Well, I think right now is an unusual moment in history. I think what happened with the corona, it's, I'd like to compare it to World War II, unfortunately, not to any kind of the plague, whatever, because we are in a paradigm shift right now. So I think what is happening right now is that we see the old world disappearing, but the new world is not yet being born. So in the middle. And I think there is a beautiful quote of an Italian writer that says that when we are in the middle, this is the time that the monsters might raise their heads. So I think it's our responsibility to make sure that it doesn't happen. And I think when you're talking about the business world, I think they were the managers, they were manager more than leaders. They were stuck in old paradigm. Efficiency, incremental innovation, or sustainable innovation, not disruptive innovation. I think they were still on the race to show the number for the coming next quarter and so forth. So we started to see a difference. I mean, the change started in the end of 1819. There was a declaration of, I think, the biggest 100 companies that are going to sign, that on a paradigm shift that they are willing to adopt, which is going to be moving from shareholders to stakeholders policies. But I think then the corona came, and I think this gives the idea, what does it mean, disruptive change? And the understanding that you can't do anything the way you could, that you have done it before that. And from now on, you see the discussions, everybody are extremely concerned on one hand, but on the other hand, they understand that you can't resist the change anymore. You can't keep on grabbing to the old paradigm, to the way things were done, to the old routine, to the traditional way of thinking. You must disrupt yourself. I mean, and it's not a coin anymore. It's just, you have to do that. So I think they're starting to do it. So I think they're getting back to the board. And first of all, they're asking themselves, which I think is a very important question, which they didn't ask. What is the reason for existing at all? If tomorrow they disappear, will anyone notice?
Will anyone miss you? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think they have, suddenly they understand they have to be brave. And once you look yourself in the mirror and ask this kind of question, even if, on a personal level, will anyone miss you if you're gone?
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a hard look at yourself and ask yourself, what about my employee? Will they miss me? My suppliers, my clients, my consumers, the community I'm working within, I'm operating within. So I think this is a crucial question. And I think organizations that won't ask it, we know already that the lifespan of a big company is now diminishing. It used to be 70 years, and now it's simply closing to, it's now around 15, and it's going to fall to 10. And if you're talking about the tenure of the CEOs of the big companies in the world, it's around 5 years on average, and you can't do much in 5 years. And this average is misleading, because we take into consideration the CEOs of the Chinese CEOs, which usually is for 10 years. If you take it down, if you only you separate the Western from the Chinese, so East and West, and suddenly you're saying with 3 years, what can you do? So I think it's also a nice metaphor. So if you don't do the change, you simply won't be around.
Right. And and what kinds of resistance, or like when you talk, this is a great line, the quote by this Italian writer, the monsters will come out.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I'm so
sorry. Oh, no worries.
No, I don't respect him. This is what I mean.
But I'm curious to learn, like, what, when you're talking with different clients or whoever else, what kinds of maybe monsters come out to play in their own fears, talking with you, the things that they...
First of all, the startups. Everybody are concerned about the startup that will... because, someone can come and eat their lunch. This is one. The other one, which I think they should be afraid of, is the regulation. So on one end, and it's a little bit complicated, because in many senses, I think regulation is very important, because otherwise, we won't get in the right direction. But sometimes regulations can stop you. For example, when I had a discussion with Tiffany Vora, she was in Canada, and they asked her, how can we, make sure that we are also a part of, this biotech revolution? And she says, well, don't put your people in jail, because if you use CRISPR in Canada, you're going to end up in jail. So what kind of, which scientist is going to take it? So I think this is, I think first of all, I think the startups, the regulation, I think also the big technological film, which is, simply spreading, is simply penetrating any kind. Amazon started as a bookshelf, a digital bookshelf, and now
they're sending rockets to space. Well, I guess that's, different company, but
no, but doesn't matter. It's the same. And also I think even if it's not a big technological shift, for example, let's see what's happening with the transportation. Like 20 years ago, when you looked at any kind of electric vehicle, you were simply laughing. It was for what they call the tree huggers or whatever. It was a horrible. It was poorly designed. It couldn't. You couldn't get to her to the end of the street. It was totally inconvenient. It was like a stupid box. And right now, when you're talking electricity, electric car, the image is, the Tesla. Right. The perfect, the best car in the world. So it's a huge shift. So, think about, all these companies, legendary companies, which exist, 150 years, and suddenly you tell them, listen, all their legacy is totally irrelevant.
There's a German company here, and it's known around the world for doing car insurance, but also in case you get locked out of your car, they come and pick you up. It's a big, huge company, And they're starting to realize, oh wait, most people aren't buying cars anymore. Usually maybe they rent or they car share. There's also autonomous driving. Millennials don't buy cars. So they're trying to, it's a big company with thousands of employees. And now they're starting to go into different markets because, like you said, they're trying to survive, find a different type of market, because the one that they've known for decades it's vanishing.
Yeah,
So
and also, yeah,
I'm also curious though too, is,
yeah.
From your point of view of how these different technologies are, like you said, I really like how you put it, penetrating all the layers of society. Kind of the question is what does this mean for humans, for society itself? Like what, does it look like, not only like in a technical sense, now we can get into an autonomous vehicle, but like, what does that mean for our rights, for our quality of life, for, the everyday activities that we have? Yeah.
Well, I always try to look at the disadvantaged and the underserved. Gandhi has
Great
this
case study.
rule. I forgot the name of the rule. It was the name is beautiful, but what he said, whenever you want to make a decision, think about the poorest person you know and ask yourself, is he going to benefit from this decision or not?
Right.
I think it's a beautiful golden rule. So everybody are talking, for example, about the fact that we are being addicted to our cell phone, but in Africa, we have one doctor for each million people. You will never be able to serve the community there unless you use technology. But if you take the cell phone and you transform it, and what is interesting, there are some startups which are talking, we don't want to work with smartphones. We want to work with the most, the basic one that today costs $5, and you use, a card, a prepaid card or whatever, and you can use it as a medical device. And assist every woman and every man to check what is happening with their children and whether they really have to find a ride to the hospital. Or another option is that wherever we need teachers, usually we won't find them. In the poorest, in the most disadvantaged communities, we won't find them. But what happens if you take your cell phone, any kind, and if it's an Android, and you put in it a software that can take every child and within 18 months, teach him how to write and read in his own language, or either in English, and also arithmetics. And these things that are being done, this is a part of what Peter Diamandis, Dr. Peter Diamandis, who is my mentor, did with X Prize. So now every time an Android phone is being born, a teacher is being born. So, yeah. So I'm looking at this. So I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of harm which is being done. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be cautious. And I don't think we should be naive and say technology is,
panacea. It solves everything, right?
Yeah, and also that, it doesn't know because it doesn't have an impact, because once you have a rifle and you learn how to shoot, you're being changed. So I'm not naive, but what I'm saying is that I always look what is going to be the positive impact.
Right.
And women which have pregnancy, and we have so many women, unfortunately, that are losing babies, what we call, silent birth. And perhaps we can tackle this problem. And elderly, which are suffering from, solitude and loneliness, and if we can assist them. So, I mean, every kind of technology, the fire, the wheel, you can use, but depends how you use it. So I always think in the end, humanity benefit from technology.
Right. And when you said, and there's a potential, of course, as a techno optimist, there's a potential for it to make a positive impact. And I think most people understand, you know, the consequences of making really smart decisions. But I think also too is, what do you think are the conditions that create this positive impact? You've mentioned regulation. I'm kind of curious about the conditions.
Well, I think, first of all, people who who are compassionate, who have empathy, and I think want to contribute to the world. I think you can find them in big companies.
Right.
You know, in big companies, you can find wonderful people, you know, who really
culture, yeah,
definitely culture, and startups. People who are getting up in the morning and saying, listen, I'm not willing. I don't, you know, I saw a startup, a German startup, I think a month ago. He was 16 years old, this guy, and he couldn't stand the fact that his mother suffers from insomnia. So he started working on different solutions, and now he finds solutions for people that it's a small robot that they're sleeping with and assisting them to sleep. So yeah. Or I don't know whether you heard about this guy, child, Jack Andreka, which he lost his a family of a friend of the family, which was like an uncle for him, and it was before the break, the summer break, and he said, well, because he was with the they found that he was sick with the pancreas cancer stage 4, and he says, I don't believe that you can't find it before. So perhaps, you know, this is really the holy grail, so early detection. So he was working on Google, and he thought he found the solution. So he wrote to the 100 major hospitals in the United States, and says, well, listen, I have an idea. Are you willing to meet with me? And he was, I think, 13, 14. So yeah. So only one person from John Hopkins, the head of the oncology department, called his deputy and says, listen, please send him, a flight ticket, not because I think he has something, but, because he's such in deep grief, and we need severe grief, and we need to assist him. And he came over, and then the next day his deputy comes in and he says, listen, I think he has an idea. Can we give him a laboratory for 3 months? And then he came up with a new solution, for early detection. So when I'm talking about the democratization, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, information is freely accessible. So you can have 13-year-old figure out, okay, well, there's a problem. There's probably something that I have access to, tinker around with. But then also having this culture of empathy, somebody at John Hopkins be like, hey, let's, this kid is grieving, and let's see what he has to say.
Yeah.
So, and I think, those kind of two in parallel create innovation. They problem solve. And I think that's what you're talking about when you're talking about a positive impact, is ideally this kind of situation.
Yeah. And I think also that it used to be only, kings, who can really, change the history.
Yeah.
And the course of history. And now it can be, this child, 13 or 14 years old. And I think this is really democratization, and we never had it. It's when we finished the first gene sequencing project, which cost $2.7 billion, and it took us nearly 14 years. When George Church was asked, he was the father of this project, and he was asked, when do you think it's going to drop to $1,000? When then, a regular person might, be able to subsidize that, paid for this price. And he says, well, it's going to take us 60 years. It took us 6 years. 6 years. And now the biggest, Illumina, which is the biggest one in the West, is talking about, less than $1,000 for the full genome sequence, 3.2 billion pairs that we have of letters that we have in our body, and in Shenzhen, I think, or Shanghai, they do it now for $100.
Wow. Whoa, talk about economies of scale. Wow.
Yeah. And we are talking about the fact that within 5 years, it's going to cost 25 cents. And please forgive me for this comparison, but it's the amount of you have to pay every time you flush the toilet. And then probably you have a gene sequencer in your bidet or your toilet. And every time you go there, your genome is going to be sequenced to see whether there are any kind of epigenetic change, which is crucial for your health to monitor.
Yeah, stool samples, hey,
Yeah.
they work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, this is just another example of when technology is distributed, equally accessibly, then, the cost of it, come down. So it actually makes whatever solution could be freely available to a lot more people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So switching gears, speaking of innovation and technology, Israel, you're Israeli, and Israel's a big technology and innovation hub. And I mean, it's incredible what it's built over just a number of decades, really. And also you have a podcast called Building the Israeli Way, right?
Yeah, Building the Future the Israeli Way. Yeah,
Okay.
You're so right. Yeah, I was, because, most of my day I'm not living in Israel in the sense that I'm highly connected to United States, the community over there. And whenever they want to show, the misery of the world, they saw what's happening. They're saying what's happening with the what's happening in China and how they're being, how they treat the minorities. And then they say something else, whatever. And then they show Gaza and how horrible the Israelis are. And I don't want to go into politics right now, and it doesn't matter. I'm lefty in any case, and I think we must have a solution. But I think Israel is much more than that. And I think, I made a decision. It's a personal decision that I have to speak with any interesting person who is doing something for the world in Israel. And I want everybody to know. So yesterday, for example, I had a podcast. I just got for people from the military went out, and one of them was injured, and but he has a PhD. I think he also studied in MIT, and he created the first. It's called Up and Ride. It's a wheelchair that you can stand on for hours. It's so comfortable.
Huh.
And it's a huge, and they're just starting working. I mean, they already got the FDA approval before, I think 2 months before the coronavirus.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're starting to work with veterans in the States. And then what they're saying is that, first of all, people are standing. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but many of the people who are in wheelchair are dying from infections in the end of the day, because so first of all, So first of all, because especially urine tests in infection, which are getting becoming much more complicated and so forth. So, and they suffer. So suddenly you have to stand. So first of all, you don't have to, then you can work on your, your metabolism, about, muscle mass and so forth. And then also emotionally. They keep saying, one of them said, I'm sitting and I'm in a restaurant, but because I'm sitting in a restaurant, the waiter is, asking my wife what I want. I mean, they are being treated, either they're transparent or minor or infant or I don't know.
Yeah, or invisible, right.
So this is, and just this is something that I did only yesterday. And next week I'm going to talk with someone who is working on new drugs for Alzheimer, which are going to be, transferred to it's micro nano solutions that are going to be plunged through the nose, because here we have this there is a place that you can.
That sounds like fun. Sticking things up your nose, it always is.
And he was already involved in 6 companies which are being, which are players on NASDAQ.
Oh, okay.
And he's very, he's so human and so humble. And so I know we have issues like every country, but I think there are beautiful things which are being done here. And I thought the world should know about that.
Yes, definitely, definitely. You know, it's geopolitical complexity aside, because, that, it does exist, but there are some really great entrepreneurs really trying to, create a more inclusive world in some sort of way. What I think is also, again, highlights technology is that, it really does put more people at the table, that maybe are disabled in some sort of way, have some sort of maybe mental challenges, or yeah, it's since it's in general democratized, and more accessible, it's more inclusive, of course, by definition, to more people. More people have access to it, so therefore they're gonna, like this kid who built something because his uncle was sick. It's a child has access to that. People that are in wheelchairs have access to different types of situations, because of technology. And I think that's in general kind of the spirit of technology, but I also think it's really really evolved with entrepreneurs like these. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I have a deep faith in human spirit, and I think I'm going to sound extremely corny, but I think the biggest force on earth is love. And
It's not corny, that's the truth, Yahli, that's the truth.
and when the Dalai Lama says that his religion is kindness, I mean, I think if this is what you're aiming for, you're going, there is this startup from my university called Magic Water. These are 3 young ladies. None of them is coming from a rich family, but about 2 million people in the world are dying every year from drinking filthy, dirty water. Mm-hmm. Most of them, I mean, at least half of them, I think, are children, under 5. And they made a decision that they can't live in a world that this problem, this situation exists. So they created this something which looked horrible, because it really looked like, a part of your toilet, the higher, and it's being, and they made, they put an impossible mission, challenge, or task. They said, we must achieve a situation when we can produce 1 liter of water for less than 2 cents. So it's look like the old bidet, whatever that you put, and it's being used simply by solar, and what they really use is air. So they simply create water out of thin air. And they did, I think the proof of concept was in 2017 in Palo Alto, when I think humidity was about 87%. And now they are, deploying it through Africa. And I simply envy them, because think about the situation that you're saving every day someone's life.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, the user, the case study, and, creating a different future really is, the underprivileged, or the people that have been marginalized.
Yeah.
And creating the future brain trust, we're focused on revisioning human culture, because what you said earlier is like, we have these solutions, but culture is what changes.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this is, this really inspiring story about how they've created water from air, is because they're thinking about a different kind of user. And the culture we have now, or the one that's the old paradigm that you mentioned, that's kind of dying. there was a certain user that was really it for that system. Usually it was, white and male and probably lived in the West and had all these kinds of needs, for his everyday life. You can see that in the design of bathrooms, for one, right? People always joke how women's bathroom lines are longer than the other. Well, it's because men were usually designing those bathrooms, thinking that they have the exact same needs as men do, right? Small thing. But
no, exactly. You know that women used to have 50% more deadly car accidents because until I think a decade ago, all the security system were tested only on men.
Yep. And
with also, the coronavirus, come on, there was a real question about how do you do the clinical trial?
Because in general, nearly all medical research studies are conducted on men. And I don't think most people realize that. It's because there's less variables, right? Women's bodies are a bit more complex.
Yeah.
So in general, we have vaccines, whatever that is, or other kind of a medication, it's all tested on men. Yeah. And so I think it's about any side effect of any medicine or vaccine, it's usually 80%. That's a high number, are women. Yeah. So different users.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite startling. But so speaking of users and revisioning human culture, so part of future brain trust is then thinking about, okay, well, who are the users of the future? Yeah. And I'm going to talk about it more with some people that are much smarter than me about these things. But in general, what I see is the human user.
I want to hear these people who are smarter than you. I want to listen to them.
Okay. All right. You're invited. No, you are.
Okay. No, I want to listen. I'm serious. I love learning from wise people.
Yes. Always. I really want to actually create a workshop around this.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I mean.
No, okay. No, really, you're in. But because again, it's really, if we are really going to design the future, what's the user? What's the users? And in my mind, so far, these are usually going to be women. Maybe in Brazil, maybe they're 40 years old. They have 3 kids. They don't have access to certain healthcare services. Maybe they're in Bangladesh. Maybe they're a 14-year-old teenage boy that, there's different users now. So when we're redesigning the future, it's like we have to think about these emerging users.
Totally. And if we look at it from a totally different perspective, I think yesterday I heard a beautiful podcast with some people who are creating local banks. And one of them created a digital wallet and then a digital bank. And one of them created for the LGB. And says people don't understand that usually LGB, they don't save. 60% of them don't have, and they go through totally different problems that we are not encountering. For example, if I used to be a woman and now I'm a man. So when they come to the, how do you call it? The DMV office, and you want to take your driving license, right. And you see a woman, but she show him, and she shows she changed her name, which is, it's a lot of money. And then he says, yeah, but when I look at your security number, sure, it belongs to a man. Is it a theft identity? And he's not willing to give her. So it's things that, because, and especially what's happening when they are in transaction, which is what he says, that because they are rebuilding, restructuring the identity, they might go through some names.
Right.
So they might have, and it's okay. I mean, if this is what makes them happy, they should have 7 names, and they should say, you can't refer to me like she or he, or you should refer to the as them. And this is Western. This is in the heart of San Francisco. This is the heart, in the heart of the liberal world, and no one is thinking about solution. And in any case, they're being so frightened. If we used to be a man and now he's a woman and he's afraid to walk in the streets after a certain hour and so forth. So think about it. It's
yeah. These are different users and they have different journeys. Like you said, they have different challenges that they face.
Yeah.
And again, what's so great about, platforms, things like Reddit or Twitter, there's of course the dark side of Twitter, right?
Yeah.
But in general, you get to actually start hearing people's different perspectives and different stories about their own experiences, maybe transitioning from man to woman, or, as somebody with autism, or there's so many different, flavors of human experience.
You're totally right.
So
That's beautiful what you're saying. Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And,
So again, it's just really about, we understand we have the technology for it. And I do feel like I think more than ever, I think we understand people in general want to be kind to each other in general, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, like, let's find these users and create better journeys for them. Let's create better products and services. And this is where startups and technology and, the beauties of capitalism come in, right? Okay, here's our user, here's the products, here's the services. But then also we can, douse that with empathy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you know that there is a book that they came last year in the middle of the Corona, burst called Transcendent. It was written by Barry Kaufman. He's a PhD in psychology. I think he has the best psychology podcast. Is beautiful. He's a wonderful person. And what he did, he went and he read the last letters and manuscript of Maslow. So first of all, Maslow never thought about it as a pyramid. He doesn't like it. He hated it.
Huh.
This is first part, but the second part, which is amazing, self-actualization that we all study, in sociology classes.
Mm-hmm.
No, he says we are all wrong regarding the interpretation, because the right interpretation, that the revised one that Maslow wrote, was that self-actualization really meaning giving to another, being generous to someone else, which is
that just gave me chills.
Yeah. Than the individualistic, solitude, genius on the hill,
Lone wolf.
paradigm.
Yeah, that gave me chills, because it's really about, everybody goes on their own journey. Everybody faces their own challenges. And sometimes, a lot of times we fall down and fail. But the whole thing is we have learnings from that. And I hope
I fail every day. I can assure you. Every day I do. I always.
You and me both. We dusty, Yahli. We keep falling. but the beauty of it is that, if we really go through and get up again, we have a learning that we can share with people.
Totally. Yeah. You're so right. Yeah.
So final question for our talk is, we are about building positive futures. What's one thing that you could recommend somebody to positively engage in making a positive future ecology?
I think you should run for politics then. I think, I think governments are going to be extremely important in the future. I think we are going to recreate the roles. I think in some ways there was a diluted. The impact was diluted. I think all the, the perception that Milton Friedman created for us, free market, and that the government should only interfere in a situation of crisis and forces, and shouldn't, interfere with the forces, this divine force of the market and so forth. So I think, first of all, it's irrelevant. I mean, we know that, and also that we already know that most of the big companies were built on the taxpayer money. Tesla, Microsoft, Google, all of them, the internet was, this was a project of DARPA. So we already
medical
know
research.
Yeah. The HNS in the United States is giving, I think, if I'm not mistaken, $800 billion a year to companies to come up with solutions. So I think we should change the role of the government. Government should be involved in creating a new social green deal with all the ecosystem. They should represent strongly the needs and preference and agenda of the small citizen like me. And we should create different collaboration between the private sector and the public sector.
Right.
So just go there and work with it and build it.
And again, I really like how you put that. I mean, this is also what the Future Brain Trust, it's like a intermediary layer between public and private, you know, and it's also about, you know, creating an inclusive to the public, but also, of course, inviting, making sure that water, food, energy, you know, the natural world, make sure it has a place at the table.
Totally. I think right now there are 5 women who are changing the economic thinking. Mariana Mazzacuto, Carlota Perez, I don't recall all the, because these are the ones that I'm totally relating, but let me see if I can find the names of the others, because otherwise it's not nice. But no, I can't, well, there is the beautiful lady who created the donut economy and so forth. So I think, but you know, simply go after Mariana Mazzacuto. She wrote 3 beautiful, very strong, very impactful, and Carlota Perez, which is, I think, she's a wonderful expert on the impact of technology on economics and society. So these for me are my mentors in thinking about these issues.
Yeah. And yeah, and you've mentioned them to me before, and I'm gonna, once we're done with this, I'm gonna go order them on Amazon because I really need to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Yahli, for talking about some really fascinating happenings and movements that are happening around our world.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to meet you in the seminar or whatever we are going to do together.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be pretty, I'm thinking it'll be pretty interesting, of course. Sure. I'm just really looking forward to, what people have to say about this, because I think it's, again, it's the starting off point of the Future Brain Trust is like, okay, who are we helping? Who are we supporting? Who are we empowering? So.
Yeah. And if I just may say, I think we should use Roman Kaczynski. I think, you know, he borrowed it from the person who created the vaccine for the polio, Jonas Salek, which says that the most important thing in life is to be a good ancestor. And he says that every kind of decision, you should think how it's going to impact 7 generations in the future, which is the indigenous societies are doing. So I think it's a beautiful starting point.
Yeah, no, to be a good ancestor.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's
we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, of course. Looking forward.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.